Hello, America. Welcome to the Junto Podcast, where we promote the practical applications of critical thinking and bold creativity. I am your host, Edgar Mills. Thanks for joining us. Hello, America. Welcome to episode 15, simply entitled Death. Yep, so this time I want to share some thoughts and even a few feelings with you guys on the topic of death. And specifically, well, no, not specifically. We'll talk a little bit about, when you lose homies in combat versus when you lose family members and things like that. So, so let's get to it. Let's start. These days there are different ways to go about burying someone or getting someone in the ground or cremated or whatever. And different people sort of celebrate I don't think celebrate's the right word, but they do that differently based on, tradition and stuff like that. And so a traditional funeral service, for instance, there'll be a formal ceremony probably held at a funeral home or a church or someplace like that. And normally they'll do like this open casket viewing. And I know people have done that for years and years, and I think that goes back to like the Civil War, perhaps. But, where did we get that cremation or that embalming tradition from originally? I think it's maybe Egyptian or something like that. But I can tell you here, folks, right now that I'm not a big fan of the embalming and the viewing. I think it's morbid. I think it's a little awkward. The body that you're looking at no longer belongs to the person that you loved. So that's just simply a shell. And I believe that stuff kind of evolved just the way business does. Somebody saw an opportunity to make a profit doing that, so they started doing that as a normal practice. That's what I believe happened. At any rate, so you might have a service at a funeral home or a church, and then a viewing of the body. Family members will get up and say words, possibly, or just a preacher or something like that. And it's okay, and it's good. I believe that, like all these others I'm going to talk about, I believe they are more for the family members than they are the dead. Well, 100%. 100%. They're more for the family members than they are for the dead. And then it's gaining a lot of traction over the past, couple decades, is cremation. That's the way my mom wanted to go, and that's the way me and my wife have discussed. Now, the caveat there is if I could be put on a Viking funeral pyre and shoot flaming arrows into my corpse, then that's what we're going to do. But I don't think that's legal. My daughter does have some interest in this topic, however. And right now, I think she says that the only place in America that it's legal to do a funeral pyre on your own property is in Divide, Colorado. Isn't that weird? But anyway, cremation. I think that's what my wife and I are gonna do. Kind of ease the burden on the family that way. It's cheaper for sure. And I don't want my family standing over my embalmed corpse like some kind of weird wax museum. But yeah, cremation. Scatter the ashes or I have my mom's ashes in a box up in our living room next to a picture of my son and my firstborn grandson. So there's other ways to do it, and that's just what I think is more. And well, let's talk cremation. Well, hold on, let me get through this list here real quick. And then in a more secular way, right, if you guys don't have any burial traditions or you think they're overly religious or whatnot, there are people that do the celebration of life, where folks will get together and at a pub or at someone's house or at a park or anywhere, or maybe wherever the deceased's favorite place was, They get together and tell stories. Well, you listen to music, share memories, maybe have a couple drinks and just talk about all the things you loved about that person and then, if effects they had on your life, things like that. So that's a pretty good one. I like that. I think that's good. And then and this is where my daughter is particularly interested, but there's the green burials. So there's a movement out there afoot, and there's a few books that have been written recently on these eco-friendly sort of burials where you are naturally, excuse me, you're naturally put back into the earth, either in a biodegradable coffin or some form of shroud or something. And then nature, and you're put in the ground, and then nature takes you back, and you decompose and become a part of the earth that from whence you came. And that obviously that probably appeals to the environmental activists out there for sure. But I think that's a very interesting way to do it, to put the natural body back into the earth, to then become essentially recycled earth. I don't know. It's interesting. It's interesting to think about. And then here I did a little search and I did a thing. Then they're talking about virtual memorials and online tributes and things like that. I don't think that takes the place of an actual celebration or remembrance or anything like that. I guess if families all spread out and things, you could do something on. But I don't think that's. I think it's appropriate, but I don't think that's as appropriate as the only means to memorialize your fallen. All right, so now let's talk about the traditional funeral service real quick. It gets on me. It bothers me a little bit the way it's done, and it always has since my grandfather died when I was probably a senior in high school. I'm trying to think if I was familiar with death before that. I did have a buddy that died. I didn't go to his funeral though. I didn't know too many people that had passed prior to that. My other granddad died. My uncle died. All of these deaths, I was somewhere else and I wasn't able to go to the funerals except for my granddad. So, and they did the normal cremation and all that stuff. I didn't have any say in that at all. His family, his daughter and sons are the ones who did all that. At any rate, let's talk about practical application real quick. Now, in many, many places, especially rural type places, there's cemeteries next to churches or on church property and that kind of thing. Here in Rome, we have the Myrtle Hill Cemetery, which is a big, it is just what it says, a big giant hill. And it goes back pre-Civil War. And that's interesting. Let's get dystopian here for a few minutes. In the future, and I don't know, maybe near future, hopefully not, at some point, these cemeteries, a lot of them they take up some significant acreage. And, we can build cars, we can build all kinds of things, but we can't build more land. There is no more land to be had. Once it's explored, and then once the government gets its hooks, or once a private development firm gets their hooks in it, that's it. The land at that point only gets recycled and reused, repurposed. It exchanges ownership for housing development to a shopping mall to whatever. So the practical application of these big cemeteries in urban areas, I just feel like at some point in time, they're going to be sold to the highest bidder, and all the headstones are going to be who knows what removed. But guess who's not going to be removed is the caskets of the dead, They're just going to build right over top. And that brings me to, I didn't think about this until just now. I want to say the movie Poltergeist. It was a scary movie in the 80s, maybe even late 70s or early 80s. Yeah, I think they built a housing development on top of some Indian burial grounds. And that's what that was haunting. Yeah. Interesting. Yeah, I think that's a long-term sort of thing to think about. Yeah, I don't know. I think cremation, yeah, that's easy peasy. You carry your loved one with you, or you just simply go scatter the ashes in the ocean or on the mountains or wherever they chose. So the practical application to that burial, yeah, I think that eventually is going to be a thing. I think premiums on graves are going to skyrocket. It's already very expensive to bury a loved one, folks. It's already very expensive to bury a loved one as it is, let alone when real estate prices start skyrocketing, even more than they have. I think that's a thing to think about. So we talked a couple different ways to put somebody to rest. I kind of like the idea of the green burial. I like the idea of cremation. And the celebration of life can be done however you do that, right? Virtual tributes can be done no matter how you do that. But I think the green burial, the cremation, I think those are the two ways to go. So at any rate, let's get back to traditional funerals here. My Aunt Pat recently passed away, Aunt Patricia Mills. And I'd say she had a difficult life. I'd say the Mills family in general, especially back in the older days, 70s and whatnot, had a pretty rough go of it. We were all brought up on the low end of the economic spectrum, for sure. But I'm about to get into some personal stuff here. At the funeral, and it was an open casket viewing and all that stuff, and I didn't mind that. I mean, I don't care for it, but I simply didn't go up and look at the corpse. At any rate, a funeral, it can be a solemn sort of place to, sort of atmosphere. But here's the news, folks. I'm about to give you some lessons that you can take away, right? When you go to a funeral, turn your friggin' cell phone off. Yeah, turn your cell phone off. Don't just turn notifications down or don't just do what you think was bare minimum so that it might not go off during the service. Because there was an incident at Pat's funeral, and I'll go ahead and tell you, I was the culprit. I wasn't the culprit with the cell phone. I was the culprit of the near incident. Because the guy sitting next to me, his phone went off 3 times. 3 times, folks. Now, I'm not going to elaborate on this guy too much, but to tell you this, he wore Crocs to a funeral. Yeah. So, if you don't have enough respect to put on a regular pair of shoes and to turn your cell phone off, don't go, man. Don't go. Nobody's going to miss you. So yeah, in a very plain spoken, well, in the way that I do, I simply told him if he didn't turn his phone off, I would beat him to death. And he turned his phone off. But not before 3 different notifications went off. Turn your goddamn cell phone off at a funeral. All right. As I get older, I think about it a little more. My own mortality. My wife's thinking about it more and more. My wife has MS. And she has, random issue. MS is a very unpredictable thing. And so it causes her to think about things a lot. I can tell you this, though, as an older person with children, not even with children, just with family, the best thing you can do is prep. You do the preparation yourself. It sounds morbid, I know, but get life insurance, at least enough to cover the expenses and things like that. Don't leave your family holding a bag for $10,000, $12,000, $15,000. prep, make a will. You might not have anything, but I'm sure, for most people, it's about the sentimental things. It's not necessarily about the stuff. And, they want to leave sentimental things to certain people and things like that. Make a will. Take the guesswork out of it. Now, I know, generally speaking, people don't like the idea of having to think about making their own will. But I got news for you. In the Army, we had to update our will every time we deployed. Yeah. You got 20-year-old kids sitting there writing out their will and their death plan and where they want to be buried and what music they want playing at their funeral and all those things. So what that does to young couples is forces conversations that wouldn't otherwise be had for 25, 30 years. So I'm not saying that to be flippant about it. I'm just telling you, it's not too early to be thinking about it. It's not too early to be thinking about it. And folks, I'm telling you right now, life insurance is absolutely critical. Even if you can only get a $10,000 policy, whatever, life insurance is critical. All right. I'm sorry. I had a little technical difficulty there. Prep. Make your will, especially if you got kids or a lot of kids. Make your will. Make your will out. Name names. Social Security, the people who you want to handle your business. Name an executor. It kind of defaults to the spouse, or if there's no spouse, then the oldest child as the executor, or an only child. If there's multiple kids, you gotta go claim that. You gotta go up and say, I am acting on behalf, and you have to go to probate court and all those things. And these are a bunch of things that, as responsible older adults, we can settle so that our kids aren't out there struggling to try to figure it out. Because let me tell you what trying to figure all that stuff out does on the fly is that it bumps aside the grief, right? You don't have time to sit and think about the loss of your mom or dad because you're out here trying to go to this office and that office and get this signed and that. And you're trying to figure that out, and you're trying to deal with the cemetery. You're trying to deal with the funeral home, and you're trying to figure all this stuff out. Who's paying for what happens first, etc. And never mind where they lived, right? Now you got to go clean the house out and do something with their stuff. And you've got to, if they were renting, holy moly, now you got to pay this guy the last month's rent. It's just, there's a lot of stuff going on, folks. There's a lot of stuff, and nobody wants to think about it until it's time to think about it. And then it's a very stressful process. Whole lot of problem solving that you could have got ahead of. Now, that being said, folks, planning, you can do this in almost any aspect of life, not just death. However, that's the final, problem solving. That's the final problem solving task right there, test, right? Can you organize your mom or dad's death without losing it and beating up family members? Look, I'm being a little funny here, folks. I'm not trying to be morbid about all this. I'm trying to give you practical things to think about, especially if you're, over 50, right? If you're over 50, these are practical things to think about. So prep, make sure you got life insurance. Make sure it's that they can find it. Make sure it's in a logical spot in a desk drawer or a file cabinet that is labeled life insurance. Yeah. Make sure you have usernames and passwords written down for various things like your bank or whatever online portal you have for your life insurance, for that matter. Your vehicle, if you're still paying on a vehicle. Your house, if you have a mortgage on the house. Yeah, all these things, the ones you leave behind are going to have to figure out. So help them out with that. Why not? So these funerals, I told the little story of this guy with the Crocs on at the funeral. Yeah. Now look, generally speaking, funerals, you know, people people cry. By the time you get to the funeral, this person's been dead for, 5, 6, 10 days maybe. When you go to this funeral, are you going there to openly mourn, to show everyone how sad you are? Or are you going there to celebrate the life of your loved one? And I get it. Some people just, death it's just such an emotional event. And that's another argument against the open casket, in my opinion. You're sitting there looking at a dead body in a casket. To me, that's morbid. To me, to walk a, 8 or 10-year-old kid up to a dead body and say, "Oh, look, she looks so natural." I mean, no, I don't think so. So, family, are you there to mourn? Yeah, a little bit. But like I said, by the time you're viewing an open casket, it's been a good week, almost couple weeks even. So what I'm trying to say by that is don't fake the funk. Stand around, fellowship with the rest of the family, love on people, hug on people. How you been? Catch up. Yeah, oh, I'm going to miss Pat. She was awesome. Yes, for sure. 100%. But if you were one of those, if you're up there crying, if you're up there moaning and crying because now you don't know what you're going to do with your life because the person who took care of you has passed, I don't know what to tell you. And I'm saying this as an adult to an adult. If you're a grown-ass man and now you're crying, not necessarily, yeah, because you lost someone, but now you don't know who's going to take care of you, you need to go re-examine your life. Go re-examine your life. Yeah, folks, death, it brings out good, it brings out bad. Now, I've known people, well, close people actually, that may have had a little money and had some life insurance. And then there was, I don't know, little insurance fraud, people trying to get over on other people to make sure that they get all the money. So that's the ugly side, right? Never mind being rich or whatever, just having a life insurance policy that's got, 25, 50 grand on it. That's enough to bring ugly out in family members. Yeah, that's enough. And watch out, those types of people. Yeah, you have to watch out for those types of people who will let the money dictate how they act and who they're willing to screw over or who they're willing to lie to. It's so friggin' tragic, man. I mean, like, it's so friggin' tragic. It's unreal. So, the good and the bad, death brings out good and bad in people. The family deaths especially. So as a person, over 50, it's not too early. I don't care if you're 30. It's not too early to get life insurance and to do a will. Actually, the earlier you get life insurance, the better, and to do a will. Because we all know, we've all lost people young, right? Motorcycle crashes or other things. It's not too early. Get ahead of the game. Make your will. Get life insurance. Organize your stuff that it's helpful in that time when people need the help the most. Is after your passing. They need the help the most to make sure your stuff is all squared away. So, good and bad. Don't let the bad come out. Don't let the bad come out, folks. Mourn how you have to mourn. If you have to go for a drive and cry because you don't want anybody to see you cry, then go do it. But don't pin it up inside and don't let it come out in other nefarious ways. Grieve however you do, but but do get it out. Do get it out. And ensure, I don't want to question anybody's deeper motives, but make sure it's the grief that is what's getting out and not just your anger because now you have to take care of yourself. All right. Well, So family, look, I know it's kind of negative, but I had a very negative experience recently, and that's what it was. And am I the asshole? I mean, maybe, probably, but I didn't wear Crocs to a funeral, and I turned my cell phone off. What about homies, man? What about when you lose homies in combat? I right now, I mean, I don't even know how many guys that I know, whether I was good friends with them or just knew them or just worked with them in proximity or anything like that. I probably know 15 or 20 guys that have died either in combat or to suicide. And yeah, so what about when your homies die? So specifically on our last few ops before I retired, or not few ops, few deployments before I retired, we lost Misha Golan, and then the next rotation after that, which we lost Ryan Sarter, and those were good homies, you know. And Mike Tolley, I know there's a handful of guys that I was good buddies with that died, and it hurt every single time. And yeah, there's nothing wrong with shedding a tear for your homies at all. But when a guy dies on a deployment, guess what? You still get up the next day. You know, you still got to go do all the things that you got to do. Now, they'll do a memorial, they'll do a flight line or they'll do a memorial service for the guys and get them on the bird so they can get back to the States and all that. And I think the Army's very good. That's one of those ceremonial things that the Army gets right, I think, is the way they treat their dead and the deference and the respect given to a fallen soldier. Yeah, Ryan Gloyer, Andy Byers, that are coming to mind on a one deployment. So that's a totally different game when it's homies versus when it's family. It's just a different thing. And usually when your homie gets killed in combat, you'll do the memorial, and then you'll go back once you guys get home from deployment. You'll do sort of a memorial to memorialize kind of like all the guys that died on that rotation or whatever. And sometimes we'll see their family members. They'll come to participate in those. Some of my buds were buried in Arlington, others in their hometowns and things like that. I'm not getting into how they choose to be buried, whether it's cremation or freaking getting embalmed and whatever. I'm just saying the way the Army does it is good. They show the respect. They show the respect. And the service members normally show the respect. All of them, even if they didn't know the guy, they'll still, stand quietly and let people say the things that need to be said and feel the way that they need to feel. So when you lose homies, so let's get into another thing about that, in fact. There's still a lot of suicide within the special operations ranks or even after you've gotten out. And I think some of that comes from what's this thing called survivor's guilt, especially if a dude got killed on an operation and you were on that operation, you might feel like, why him? Things like that. I say this about that. You can what if things to death. What if I was just over here, or what if we would have just gone here first and done this first? You can what if something to death, and it's really not to be crass by saying it's a waste of time, but you absolutely can't change what has passed. You absolutely cannot change what has passed. And usually, guys get killed for a reason, right? There, like we were getting shot at, or something, or there was a rollover or whatever. You might be able to find a reason that happened, but you shouldn't. You got to be very careful about assigning fault. And now the military will do that, man. They will do an investigation and try to figure out who's responsible. And I tell you, that's That's sort of a double-edged sword there. And you do want to know how and why a thing happened, especially if it was like fratricide or something like that. People want to know those things. Our heroes were heroes, right? Whether they died in combat or even suicide. But yeah, you like to know why. There's closure there that some people really need that. You just can't fathom going through life wondering why, and then blaming yourself, and in the absence of answers, blaming yourself. So I encourage you, all of my military homies, to be mindful of that and get away from that survivor's guilt. Don't fall into that trap. It's not your fault. It's not your fault. Unless you literally pulled the trigger, it's not your fault. And especially if you guys weren't even on the same operation. Like, don't feel bad that you didn't get killed in combat and your homie did. Think about it this way. Do you think if your homie got killed in combat that he would want you to get killed too? Chances are no on that, right? I don't want my best homie. I don't want Timmy Haynes to be killed because I get killed too. Do you understand what I'm saying by that? So think about your homie who you lost, and don't have survivor's guilt. Be thankful that you're alive, because I know that your homie wants you to be alive. All right. Now, if you want to go make sure his kids are squared away and all that sort of thing, and help the wife, take care of the yard and that sort of thing. Yeah, do the things. They're not superficial. Any help is appreciated, I'm sure. But try to avoid that trap of the survivor's guilt, guys. Please, please, please. And, I don't know how much of that you can attribute to suicide rates, but I'm sure there's got to be some in there. I know a few guys who struggle with it. I know a few guys who struggle with that. I never did. It's not because I'm a selfish a-hole. I have faith in Jesus and God, and I believe that things happen the way they happen for a reason. I don't have to know what that reason is. I may not even be capable of understanding that reason, especially if it's a divine reason. But I do believe things happen the way they happen for a reason. Whether it's who knows why, right? Who knows the divine reason why? But it's there. And you think, well, God, how does God make bad things happen? Well, God don't necessarily make the bad things happen. But good can come from it if you allow it, if you're open to it. You have to be very sensitive when we're talking about faith and things like that. And I'm no master here, and I'm just telling you what I think. You have to be very sensitive to what the Lord's trying to tell you in these times when your homies die or your family members die. You have to be very sensitive to what the Lord might be trying to say. There may be a lesson there that is profound. There may be some revelation that comes to you that's just blows your mind, that will change your life forever. But if you're not open to it, if you're too busy blaming yourself or someone else, and you're so overcome with grief and you're not handling it in a healthy way, you might miss the blessing that would have come from it. So just be mindful of that. The blessings can come from that. I know it doesn't seem logical, but it's possible, and likely even. I tell this story sometimes. We were getting ready to go out. I was the B team operations sergeant on one of the rotations, and we were doing QRF for a team that was getting ready to go out on in a hairy spot. And we were getting ready to roll out, and we were getting jocked up in the talk, and then there was a support guy, and he and me we're still good friends to this day. But he on the way out, I was cutting a joke or something. I don't know what. We were laughing and cutting up on the way out to go to the airfield. And he stops me. He's like, "Hey, Ed, don't you ever get nervous about going out and doing that?" And without skipping a beat, without even slowing my stride, I looked at him, I smiled at him, I said, "No, man, I believe in Jesus," and kept moving. Because that's the way you have to think, folks. Now, that don't mean I'm going to go out into the middle of a raid and start acting a fool and think I'm invincible. But God gives us the tools we need to succeed, right? And if it is your time, I'm a strong believer that it is your time. So I'm not going to overthink that bit too much. I'm just going to go do my job to the best of my ability. And knock on wood, thank God, of all the deployments I did, I never been shot. So yeah, I think faith has a lot to do with not only the way you feel about your own mortality, but the way you handle it when other people around you, close to you, die. Yeah, it can be a traumatic, especially emotionally traumatic. I know that. I'm not minimizing it at all, folks. And I'm not telling you to be flippant or casual about it. It's not that at all. I'm just telling you to be thoughtful and to be thoughtful and consider what the person you're mourning, the way you behave and the way you carry yourself after that, right? Is that in a way consistent with the way you think they would want, be proud of? Yeah. Are you behaving in a way that your loved one or your homie that they would be proud of once they've passed? Yeah. So, survivor's guilt. Yeah, that's a thing. Avoid that trap. So, I tell this sometimes, and we came from Colorado. When I retired in 2020, my wife and I were still on the fence whether we'd stay in Colorado or come back to Georgia. We opted to come back to Georgia because my mom and dad were divorced, but my dad lived here. My mom lived in South Carolina, so we wanted to be closer. And my grandma lived here with my uncle. So that was the three people, other than my wife and kids, those were the three people most important to me. And so we wanted our kids, even though they all did not directly come to Georgia with us, they all kind of filtered in later. We wanted our kids, and especially our grandkids, to have access and to be close to my mom and dad and my wife's mom and my grandmother. So I came early. I did a little advon, and my wife and kids were still in Colorado. Is that correct? No. That's not correct. My kids were still in Colorado. My wife was with her mother, and we got to Georgia in about August of 2020, I think. And I want to say it was the very end of September when my dad died. So my daughter-in-law was pregnant, and he was born in January, young Emmett. And so my dad, that broke me down a little bit, that my dad never had an opportunity to meet his grandson. And then it was maybe 3 months later, in December, my mom died. It was on her birthday, or the day before her birthday. And she died. And I remember my cousin Angie called me, and she was all tore up. She lived in South Carolina near my mom. And so again, yes, my mom was in poor health, and she was a hard living woman. But it tore me up. I felt immediately, I was like, well, she's no longer in pain, and her life is no longer burdened with what's going on here. But it tore me up that she wouldn't get to see her grandkid born. And then Emmett was born in January, and all that COVID nonsense. My grandmother was in a nursing home, and I think he was probably 6 months old or so, and we had a couple of opportunities for him to meet his great grandmother, and And then not long thereafter, she died as well. So fortunately, my mom's mom is still with us and happily married. She got married not too long ago. So anyway, so there's my my feel sorry for myself story on death when it comes to family members. Now that was my mom and dad and grandma. A few months, let's see, my Uncle Ronnie died before my dad. I don't think it was a year before, maybe. And I was there for that, and I'm trying to think, was my wife there for that as well? Yeah, I think my wife was there for that. I think we were on leave or something for that. So my Uncle Ronnie passed, and then my dad, and so and grandma. So anyway, the things that hurt me so bad, it was literally that they didn't get a chance to meet their grandson. My dad I don't think he was in that bad of hell. He was trying to do better, with himself. He was trying to go walking and things like that. But good people, after years and years and years of smoking and just generally unhealthy, eating habits and things like that, that's what happens. My Aunt Pat probably smoked up until she went to the hospital the last go round. And probably even when they sent her home from the hospital, she probably even smoked. That was it. She was a diehard smoker. She was going to smoke, period. No matter what you say to her, and her mom as well. But I don't know. I think Mama Mills probably might have stopped smoking before her death. So yeah, my Uncle Ronnie. So my other grandmother died. I want to say, was it 18 or 19? Nah, it might have been 18 or 19. Then Ronnie died, and then my dad, and then my mom, then my grandma, and now my Aunt Pat. So, yeah, family death. And for each of those folks, I knew that they left their pains down here. I knew that they left their troubles down here. And that it was probably more, it's sad that we're not going to get to see them anymore, but it's not sad for them, folks. They're not in pain. They are now their best. They're now their best selves. I believe. That's what I believe. So, yeah, death. I'm not crass about it, folks, and I'm not flippant about it at all. But my perspective might be a little bit different. Because I can tell you this. I value life. I wrote a paper. I got to look and see if that's still published, or if I need to republish that on the Junto Podcast.com. I wrote a paper talking about the value of life and valuing life. And in my time in combat, we have dropped bombs on dudes. I've shot dudes. But every time that a life gets taken, even when it's a bad guy, now I know this is going to be I'm not getting mushy here. I'm just telling you. The fact of the matter is that guy, that bad guy. Now I've never shot at anyone that wasn't shooting at me, folks. I'm going to go ahead and put that out there. I don't lose sleep over combat. I've never killed women and children. All right. I didn't walk around with a bag full of hand grenades blowing up randos. But every time someone dies, that's a life extinguished, folks. And in other circumstances, that person may have been, it was definitely someone's son, or daughter, definitely someone's child, possibly someone's parent and sibling. And under different circumstances, that person might have been a friggin', he might have been the local youth soccer league coach, or he might have been the local art teacher. He might have, you know what I mean? Now, you can argue about Islam and stuff like that all day long. But I'm telling you this, my point is taking life for granted and taking it needlessly they're both bad. If you have no respect for life and no empathy for other humans, then you're probably some psychopath. But if you are a combat operator and you've been out there and you have taken life, that it was probably out of necessity at that moment, right? But if you enjoy taking life just for the sake of it, you probably need a little bit of therapy. There's probably a problem there. Appreciate life. Yeah, appreciate life. Now let's get back onto the funeral practices. The celebration of life, folks, where people gather in a non-standard place. It could be a pub. You know what I mean? It could be your favorite mountaintop. It could be out on a boat. Yeah, it could be a lot of places. But that celebration of life where you invite whoever you invite, whoever the close family and close homies were. To me, that seems like an appropriate thing to get together and celebrate life. Tell stories of your loved one that passed. Talk about their favorite things. I'll tell you, one of my most, I don't want to say fond memory, just a memory of Pat at all, was the fact, because first let me tell you that the Mills house, usually there was at least 6 folks living in one house at one time, sometimes up to 9. But Pat would always black out her windows with like shades or like even, garbage bags or something. Just black them out so that the room was completely dark. And so that when she went to bed, like she didn't see anything. And then another thing that it is a funny memory about Pat, and this was throughout my childhood, by the way, is that she was horrified of spiders, even daddy long legs, even, harmless spiders. She was absolutely horrified. And all the Mills boys would always, they would always like toss a grande long leg on her or something. Yeah. Anyway, that was one of my fonder memories of Pat there. But a celebration of life. Yeah. That seems right to me. Play their favorite music. Talk about your favorite times together and the things they liked. Yeah. Be happy. Be joyous about it, and be joyous because, like I said earlier, they're no longer in pain. Whatever pain there may have been, it no longer exists. They're not tormented anymore by some of the trials of the world. You know what I mean? The world can be ugly, man. And some people take that to heart. A lot of the ugliness, some people take it to heart. Yeah, I think celebration of life, I think that's the way to go. I like that. I like it a lot. And then, like I said, in short of a Viking funeral pyre, then my wife and I are both, we choose to be cremated. And then the family can do whatever they like after that. Or just stick us up on the shelf, you know what I mean? Next to my mom, I guess. Anyway, don't be selfish. Don't be a selfish family member. When you go to a funeral, be gracious. Do what mourn the way you want to mourn, or be joyous even. Be the one joyous person in the crowd of mourners if you want to. But be respectful. But be respectful of other people's time. And be respectful of the deceased, that, you got your cell phone turned off. And you're not wearing Crocs and a pair of friggin' white athletic socks. What else? You guys got any opinions on that? So, here's something I didn't talk about. I talked about homies in combat, but I have a fair amount of police friends and acquaintances here in Georgia. And there was a fella, a cop got killed several months ago that one of my friends that knew him personally. And that hit him kind of hard, man. It hit him hard. I'm not telling you have to take death in the same way that I take death at all. Not at all. It's different for everybody, I know. But it does affect people differently. The only thing I would say is, it might hit you hard, but make something positive out of it, man. Make something positive out of it. Don't dwell in it, because that'll hurt you in the long run. Try to make something positive out of death. Now, I'm not going to name names. I know a guy here in Rome, and what I didn't know about him until later was that he lost a young son. And I don't know how old he was. When I say young, I want to say, maybe 7 or something like that. I don't know the details on it, because I don't want to, I want to know, but I don't want to sit down and just ask about it. But man, I can tell you this, if I lost one of my kids or one of my grandkids now, I might not be quite so cool and calm and collected about it. Initially anyway, I just can't even imagine. I can't even imagine right now. And I don't want to. I'm just, now that I'm thinking about it, like, oh my God, I don't know what I would do. I can't even imagine. I can't fathom that level of pain that I think I would probably feel. So I'm giving all this advice, I'm talking all this junk, but I'm telling you right now, if I lost any one of the 6 people that are most close to me right this minute, I would probably be a friggin' wreck. I'd probably be a wreck. Yeah. It hits people differently, folks. It hits people differently. Yeah. Think about it. Think about it. Don't dwell in it, and don't go dark every time somebody don't answer the phone call, and you think, oh my God, there's been an accident. Don't dwell in it, and don't jump to darkness. But do be a responsible adult and consider the things you need to do to prep for your death. Get that life insurance, folks, if you don't have it, so that you don't financially burden your family, and hopefully maybe leave them a little extra so that they, their living at least can be financially not a big problem. And then the will, do that up, man. Where do you want to be buried? How do you want to do you want to be cremated or embalmed, or do you want a Viking burial? Do you want to, you want us to put you on a Viking ship and push you out to sea and set it on fire? Or like the natives. My wife's, she's got native blood in her, and we talked about putting her up on a platform, and wrapping her up in the Cherokee cloth and all these decorative things, and doing that. If it's legal, folks, we're going to do it. I can tell you that. But what I'm saying is, be responsible. Get your affairs in order before it's too late. How and why and where that you want to do all your death ritual, and the insurance to help your family to, be easy on it. Now, I'm sure rich people got lawyers to handle this kind of stuff, probably, but your average working class and lower working class folks don't have that, folks. We don't have that kind of stuff. Is it because we don't think about it? Possibly. Is it because we know we have no generational wealth to pass forward, so it's not that big a deal? Maybe. But even then, just the cost of funeral expenses, that's worth the life insurance right there. That's worth the life insurance right there. So, I'm sorry that this was a somber episode, but think about your death. Get ahead of the game when it comes to the administrative stuff. And then think about the deaths that you knew of in the past, or even if you've recently had homies die or family members die. How did that affect you? Was it somebody really, really close, or was it just an extended family member, or what? Did you process all that in a positive way? Or did you go hit the booze and get sauced up and become a nuisance to everyone around you? I don't know. Think about it. Get ahead of the game, folks. Don't leave your family holding the bag when your time comes. And guess what? You don't know when it's coming. So be ready. Be ready, folks. Because if there's one thing that everybody on this planet does, what is it? Yeah, we're all going to die. Bill Gates is going to die. Elon Musk is going to die. So, be ready, folks. As ready as you can be. And I'm saying that on this administrative level. You might consider introducing yourself to Jesus if you don't know him. If you don't know Jesus, you might want to introduce yourself. And you might not. You might be whatever. Whatever you think is going to happen to you at the end of life. Who knows? The great unknown. That's what it is. But at least for the worldly part of that, be ready. Don't leave your family holding them back. Have a plan. Play some funny music at your funeral just to get a laugh. All right? All right. Look, I'm sorry that was somber, folks, but it was weighing on me. I'm sorry it was somber. So, if you got any comments on this stuff, I'd love to hear them. If you've got some homie combat stories you want to tell me, I'd love to hear them. If you got a family member recently passed or just passed years ago and you want to describe something that from that, please share. You can find me at Edgar Mills at ospreyshootingsolutions.com. You can submit questions, comments, and papers if you want to write a paper. You can submit that on thejuntopodcast.com. And what do we got coming up shooting wise? Osprey Shooting Solutions. We got a pistol workshop coming up, not next week, but the following week. And then we'll have a workshop the following week after that. And then in August, we have a pistol workshop, a rifle workshop, a pistol workshop, and a wild card day. Did I say wild card day for July? We got a pistol workshop coming up and then a wild card day at the end of July. And then a pistol, rifle, and a wild card in August. So those are good. Hey, there's a lot of bang for your buck there, pun intended. There's a lot of value per round. Those are inexpensive 4-hour training days that expose you to good stuff. We really focus, especially the workshops, we really focus down on specific fundamentals. And specifically for this next workshop that we're going to do, I want to say July 19th, that is going to be a pistol workshop, and we're going to be working from 25 yards and beyond. We're going to be working on visual focus, acceptable sight confirmations, and trying to push speed at distance. Yeah, we're trying to push speed even at those distances. So look out for that kind of stuff. Come on out, participate. As always, we do a free half day of training for local police agencies. And when I say local, I mean, North Georgia. I've got one agency, a fellow reached out from me from that agency, and those guys are going to come out and take me up on that real soon. And I'm excited to do it. What do we got coming up from two team guys is, I want to say September. We had a May land navigation course that we rescheduled. It looks like that's going to be rescheduled for September. So it shouldn't be too hot. The terrain should be pretty good. It's not going to be quite fall yet, so there's still going to be plenty of foliage, but the weather should be pretty good for us on that. And we will be opening that up to other folks. So once we do set the date for that, I'm going to open up probably 3 or 4 spots for other people to sign up. And then on the Junto Podcast, what do we got coming up? Well, we've got this episode, and then I've got to do a follow-up, but I'm trying to get the Floyd County Sheriff over here with us. I got to do a follow-up with him. And then probably before that, we're going to have a friend of mine, Ricky, on, who's a police officer trainer. And we're going to talk about some cop training and stuff like that. So please follow us on all the socials. Please share with your friends and whatnot. And please reach out and give me feedback. Always am eager to get feedback from you guys. Other than that, hey, treat each other well. Be good. Stay safe. And I love you guys. Take care.